Hey, aloha, love tribe. So I just recorded a whole thing and all of a sudden everything collapsed. So you get the new version of what I just did. um, how the heck are you? It's been a minute. I have been in a solo recovery phase after some massive, massive rug pulls in my life. And one was a romantic rug pull, one was a family rug pull, and, they have given me a lot of opportunity to go inward and, be strong and look at all the things that, I'm doing and not doing and where can I, shine a light on my blind spots of how I'm operating, uh, and trauma work and whatnot. So, a few things. Um, I'm doing this little experiment right now because I'm writing this blog post. Obviously, you guys are reading it as you're checking this out. And I wanted to do a video around it as well because I thought, I talk a lot better, I think, sometimes than I write. And I'm a really good writer, but I'm also like, I'm not a perfectionist, but I like to, here's the punctuation, da da da. So flow doesn't happen as easily as it does when I'm talking. And so, it's kind of like how we engage with each other as humans, right? Like sometimes it's good to send a text or write the letter, and sometimes it's very good to be person to person with energy and love. And, you get to see the person's eyes and the reaction and blah, blah, blah. So that's why I was trying to combo plan this. But, anyways, so I know Thanksgiving is coming up, and my favorite teacher, my homie, my first spiritual teacher, who is Ram Dass, one of his favorite quotes is about, if you think you're, spiritually evolved, spend a weekend with your family. And, a lot of us get out in the world and we're like, do, I'm so awesome. I'm kicking ass. Look at me. I've made some money. I have some status. I got the thing, da, 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 da. But then the minute you go home for Thanksgiving, like all of a sudden you revert back into this old version of yourself that's this childhood, traumatized being who is, uh, insecure, who's hurt, who feels like they have to prove themselves or whatever is going on for you and your own, unique family. And so it's always such a it's a gift, because we sit and think like, we build these structures around our identity and who we are and how we operate because we're out of the true zone of the fire, and the fire is the family. And, we're out here doing the thing, but the reality is we've got these layers of how we operate in the world that have been formed because of our family and how we were brought up. And so sometimes we can suppress them, sometimes we, integrate them, sometimes we just are like, forget it. And so we're doing okay over here, but the minute we get back into like family land, we sometimes can collapse, sometimes we explode, sometimes we run away, whatever it might be. And so the true test of our spiritual growth is being in the ring. It's being in the dojo. It's being in the engagement. It's not disassociating. It's not detaching, and it's not avoiding and ignoring. And so, um, and I think with anything that we do, we have to practice, and it comes in waves. So, to truly be gentle with ourselves, to give ourselves compassion, to give ourselves grace that God gives us, and understand that, like, you know, Mike Tyson and what is his name? Jake Paul just had this fight. Was it rigged? I don't know, who the heck am I to say? However, these dudes got in the ring with each other and they punched and they fought and they, put on a good experience. And so they had to take some punches, and the reality is they can both go do their training outside of the ring as much as possible. They can go have 10,000 hours outside of the ring, but the only thing that actually matters is what happens in the ring. And so if you are not able and willing to get in the ring of your life every day, how are you ever going to really know that the things that you've been working on, those 10,000 hours, that practice is actually working, And so you can read a book, You can go to a seminar. You can get a degree with a PhD and have all the alphabet soup next to your name. You can go counsel other people and therapize them, and you can do all the stuff. It does not mean that you are actually skilled at the actual skill until you have to do the skill. And so, you know, you think of warriors and the military, and they go do all of their training and they go do all of the stuff. Um, you got your sergeant yelling at you and you're getting the thing and you're muddy and you've got the things flying at you, but the reality is you are not in a life or death situation. You're in a training situation, and so it's not real. It's just practice. The only true test of your skills are when you're in the ring and when it is life or death. And so that's what I've been doing lately. And it fucking sucks. It's hard as balls, because you think like, oh, I meditate every day and I listen to the music and I do this and I chant and I'm writing my journals and look at me, I've got my cards and la la la, I burned some sage. Um, until you actually are confronted with another being, entity, situation that is like, hey, this is messed up. Um, you don't get to actually do the work. And so you can practice, but getting in the ring is the only way you truly do it. And not with a sparring partner, but truly with somebody who is, you know, on a mission to smash you. And I'm not saying that your family is that, but you really have to understand, like, how am I going to be the best version of myself unless I'm doing the thing? So, la la la, I'm sharing this experience with you because Thanksgiving's coming up, like I said. And I know a lot of you are going to be uh, with your families, and, there's tons of opportunities for you to just hide and not talk about important subjects. There's tons of opportunities for you to drink and eat and just ignore important things, and just kind of gloss over life. You can do that, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. However, for those of us who are on a journey of self awareness, self discovery, self healing, self forgiveness, when we get the opportunity to be face to face and in person with our families, um, you know, it's not like you want to go start some heavy duty discussion over pumpkin pie. However, if you've got some opportunities to have some one on one little nuggets and getaways, with your folks or with your siblings or with whoever, you know, how can you prepare yourself for success? How can you prepare yourself for, um, if there's an issue that, has troubled you, rather than keeping it a thorn in your shoe and you're still trying to walk around and hobble, like, why not address it and be brave and creative, And so obviously this comes with our parents, and if we're lucky enough to have a parent or two parents that are alive, you know, you can do a lot of work. It doesn't mean they're going to change, because they're not. It's only about you changing and you changing your perspective and how you look at your relationship with them and how you look at them as individuals. I was having lunch yesterday with somebody who knows me extremely well. He's known me for decades and understands a lot about the timeline of my life, my history, etc. But the reality is he doesn't understand me. And you won't, nobody on this planet ever truly will. Only I will. And same for you. Nobody will ever truly understand you. They might know your timeline, they might know all of these things, but they don't know your operating system and how you truly work. Here's why: because they're not you. Pretty simple. And so, this person asked me, he was like, how can you be so loving towards your parents after all the shit that you've been through? And I'm like, well, they've been through a lot of shit too, and I don't know what it was like to be them before they had me. I don't know what they had to go through as individuals. I can look at their timeline and I can be like, oh, that sucked, but the reality is, like, I don't know what it was like to live inside of their skin. And so, um, but I do know, what I do know is that they're loving people and that they're good inside. And no matter what they did to me, it wasn't because they hated me and they were purposefully trying to hurt me. They were literally trying to like have their little tiny little part of their nostril above the fucking tsunami of life that was handed to them. And so the fact that like they didn't kill me, thanks. So uh it doesn't excuse behavior that was negative or hurtful, and so I think that's, when I went to rehab about 8-ish years ago, um, there were a lot of things that were going on in my life that they were like, "Oh, you didn't learn how to forgive," and I was like, "Fuck you. I'm not forgiving anybody. There's this thing that happened and I'm never forgiving. So no." And because I had this idea, if I forgave somebody, then it meant that I was giving them a hall pass for being a fucktard to me and hurting me. And that was obviously a misconception. And as I did tons and tons of healing, I calculated it this last week. It's been about 5,000 hours of healing that I've done, self-healing and, work with other people, and over 6 figures in the last 8 years. So every day I have about a 90-minute practice that I do, and, in addition to that, I have, um, spent a ton of time and a ton of money with a ton of therapists who are good and not good and amazing, not amazing, and rehabs, no rehabs, and, psychedelic therapy, whatever. But, like, a good 5,000 hours minimum in the last, 8 years. Uh, but anyways, so what I realized along my journey about forgiveness was, uh, they say like, "Oh, if you don't forgive somebody, you're the one swallowing the toxic poison." It's true. And so once I recognized that, just from a selfish point of view, that I didn't want to keep having that resentment, that anger, that feeling of like, you can't ever hurt me. I hate you. What I kept realizing was like the more that I can let that go and have more compassion and empathy towards others, the more I got to be free. My energy got to lift, and I didn't have to be down in this. Dr. David Hawkins has a scale of your vibrational feelings. And shame is the lowest, and peace is the highest. Enlightenment is peace. And so when you're in that state of resentment, it's a few steps above uh, shame, but you're holding on to this like lower vibrational place, and so how can you go be this effective human? How can you go be a loving human? And when your goal and your intention is to be peaceful and to create a peaceful world and create a loving world, if you're down here in this zone, it's impossible to be up here. And so how can I free myself, from a selfish perspective so that I can be up here to go do my mission? And so that was something that I thought was really interesting. And again, it is never letting anybody off the hook for behavior that was hurtful. It's just, you don't have to live in that zone of like, you did me wrong, so I'm never going to let you back in or never going to talk to you. No. Um, it doesn't mean that you have to keep allowing somebody to abuse you or hurt you if their intention is not to change and grow and love you. But if they're in the ring with you, if they are doing work, and if they are loving you and recognizing uh, their blind spots, their deficits, and trying to correct them, stay in the ring with that person. That person wants to be with you. That person loves you. And um, so anyway, so the forgiveness part was really interesting after, the rehab, because it gave me internal freedom of the constant like, oh, you're a bad guy, you're a bad woman, you're a bad mom, you're a bad dad, and all of that. Um, so so I am very I can forgive people who are making actions that are toward love. And, there was an old phrase, an old bumper sticker, and it was like, what would Jesus do? And so I have a whole thing, what would love do? And love would love. Love would love. Love would look at another human being and that their intentions are like, wow, I'm a hurt, wounded person just like you. And so love would want to hug that person. Love would want to hug that inner child of that person. Love would want to, uh, namaste, the light within me sees the light within you. And so I had a therapist recently who doesn't understand me and doesn't understand my operating system. She wants to, but she's not me, Uh, and she was like, "Oh, you're spiritually bypassing things because you're, turning it over to God, and you know, uh, you're letting God help you surrender to something that you can't control." And I'm like, yeah, that's what the fuck I'm doing. Because if I'm over here in my ego trying to control things and trying to do the things that I want in the way that I want, and they're not working out the way that I want, I'm going to go fucking crazy, And so my spiritual practice has been the only thing that has saved my life for the last 8 years. And so this person, although well intentioned, doesn't know me, and doesn't know, this is a problem with therapy. Okay. And I'm going to tell you guys this, and I'm not suggesting not to get therapy. Therapy is super helpful. I've been doing hypnotherapy. I had some really, really powerful sessions. It helped me, get into some old doorways of my past and, rearrange, reframe, clean them out a little bit so that my psyche can move forward, and not only my psyche, but the energy that my psyche, has. And so it's really, really been profound, and I love this work. However, you know, a therapist can only do so much because they've only read so many books, they've only done all these things. They don't know you. And so when you have an intuitive experience and feeling that says, uh trust that shit, because that's the only thing that is your truth. It's your internal compass. It's your internal, uh, receiver, as it were, like a radio receiver. And, you know, so when something feels off to you, listen to that internal voice. It's typically correct. And um, anyways, my my experience of getting second, third, fourth, 10th opinions about something is because when I'm presented with something from an external person who has, some letters next to their name, or years of experience in a field that maybe I don't. Um, but if something feels like off to me, like there's that dissonance, that cognitive dissonance. And so if you don't learn how to understand that you have cognitive dissonance, and not only cognitive dissonance, you have energetic and dissonance. If you just ignore that, you're going to continue to put your external decision making mechanism on others. And that's not how to do life. However, it doesn't mean you shouldn't look for those data points. But, and so that's what's in this blog, So I was playing with perplexity. I love perplexity. I think it's a really cool tool. It's an AI tool. For those of you who don't know, you can, ask it questions. It'll do real-time searches, but you can have all these different algorithms, whether it's Claude, whether it's ChatGPT, et cetera, whether it's a Perplexity one, and it will, have its own way of trying to answer your queries, your questions and stuff. And it's insane. It spits out this whole blah thing within, seconds. And, so I think it's really fascinating. And so to look at that as a tool for understanding myself, and to try to get, you know, validation of what I'm feeling, as well as like, nope, you're totally on the wrong path, Val. Like you're operating out of trauma, or you're operating out of, uh, an old pattern, an old wound, and, you've got this blind spot. And so I think it's really neat to kind of, again, extrapolate from different voices, whether it's a perplexity, whether it's a human, whether it's a book, whether it's a podcast, whatever, and see, like, how does this fit into, my worldview, my operating system, and how I want to choose to go forward with solutions. So the parenting and the forgiveness, like, people have, and we all do, we've all grown up with this hero persona of our parents. We think that just because, a man put some semen in a woman, and just because a woman had the egg and it got fertilized and it, grew a baby for 9 months and it came out, us children think that those two people somehow should all of a sudden be perfect and understand, like, I'm this great parent now. You're just still a retarded human like everyone else. Like, all of a sudden, just because those two biological things happen doesn't all of a sudden make you like a parent, not, or even a good parent for that matter. And so um that's an animalistic thing, but our human child minds and child brains, because we need our parents to be these protectors, um, we put them on a pedestal. We think that they're supposed to be, close to perfect, aka God. And when they make all these mistakes, it's like, what do you mean? How come you yelled at me? How come you didn't pay attention to me? How come you didn't meet my needs here, there, and there, da da da? And so, through the teenage years, and certainly through the years of the 20s and 30s until you have your own children, you start to realize, like, mom's just an average person like me, especially once you have your children. Same thing, and you start to have a lot more compassion and empathy, especially men who go out in the workforce and they realize, wow, dad's just fucking slogging it along, trying to make it so that, we've got some food on the table here. And he's not this, kingpin or whatever that, you think your dad is. He's a dude out there struggling. And when moms and dads struggle, we're still just normal people. So sometimes we turn to porn. Sometimes we turn to food. Sometimes we turn to social media. Sometimes we turn to gambling. Sometimes we turn to alcohol. Sometimes we turn to, sex outside of the family, sometimes, or, the marriage. Sometimes we turn to alcohol. Sometimes we turn to whatever. And those are called soul holes. I call them the 5 Ds: diamonds, drugs, digital, donuts, and dicks. And we're trying to fill up this soul hole that is like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. There's all these responsibilities. There's all this adulting, and nobody ever gave me the manual of how to be an adult. Nobody ever gave me the manual of how to be a parent. And so you're going to stumble a lot, and you're going to stumble based on your old programming from your childhood. I remember when I first did some therapy. It was about 9 years ago. It was before the divorce. It was before the total breakdown. And they're just like, we didn't talk about your childhood and your past. And I was like, fuck you. I'm not talking about that. That's way long, long gone. I'm going to talk about the future. I want to talk about how we can build a new life and blah, blah, blah. And they're just like, honey, no, like, you've got to look at your old patterns. You've got to look at all this old stuff. And I was super resistant back then because I just really thought, like, well, all that's laid to rest. My dad's dead. I've got a mom who's alive and we're decent. So it's just kind of like, whatever. I'm here. Let's talk about here. Let's talk about the future. I don't want to look at the past. And so I was really, really ignorant and resistant. Um, and it wasn't until I got into rehab that I was doing some EMDR, and it's a trauma therapy, and you move your eyes back and forth, and you do all this shit so that your left and right hemisphere of your brain can talk to each other, and you can access old memories. Da da da. Well, all of a sudden, I realized, like, oh gosh, uh, I was 46 years old, and a whole trauma came up from a very young age of being molested by a family member. And I was like, I would have remembered that, like, duh. And she's just like, no, you wouldn't have. You were too young, and you have an ability to compartmentalize things when you're young, when you have very, very traumatic experiences. Um, and I was just, I couldn't believe that that was part of my life, and my story. Because I was like, well, I would have remembered. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Uh, And so what came to me was just like, wow, what else don't I know about myself? What else is in there? And um, so it was very, very humbling, for somebody who thought she knew what the fuck was up and I was badass and all this. And so that I got my ass handed to me there and realized I guess I have to kind of look at the past to, remove some weeds, to lessen some of the trauma experiences in my life so that my operating system could be a little bit more chill and that my nervous system could be more chill. So, so, going through different types of therapy, DBT, CBT, doing group stuff, doing psychedelic therapy and whatnot, obviously doing tons and tons of yoga and breath work and, meditation. There's a panacea of things that you can use. And so they don't all work for you and they aren't all relevant at the time, so stuff that was like really working for me at a certain point of my life might not be so relevant now because I'm kind of like, yeah, I got that. Or it just doesn't apply to what I'm doing. So there's no right or wrong way to do therapy and recovery and coaching moving forward. But the way is to get in the ring, and start doing it. But, and it takes time. I remember when my ex and I were going through couples counseling prior to the divorce and after the divorce and all the stuff. I mean, we must have seen 10 therapists. And quite honestly, they all sucked. And they didn't suck because, we got a divorce. But what sucked was, you know, think about this, right? You have a vehicle, a car, right? It gets in a giant crash, and your vehicle is your relationship. And, would you take that vehicle into the body shop once a week for 10 weeks and then not drive it in between the time being in the body shop? That's what fucking couples counseling is. It's stupid. And so, no offense, but it's not how you do things. And same thing with crisis work. And that's why rehab was helpful, because it was like, you're in the fucking body shop for 30 days. It doesn't mean you're going to be perfect going out, but it's like you're in there doing intensive work. And so I'm grateful for therapists and coaches and healers and people out there who are doing great work, but there's a difference between being in maintenance mode and there's a difference between being in pre-crisis, crisis, and post-crisis mode. And so, when you're pre-crisis, like I look at it like a bell curve, right? Crisis is the peak, like, oh my God, you're in the fucking, you're in divorce court, you're in the hospital, you're in jail, God knows whatever, but like you're in the fucking shit when everything just exploded. When you're right before that pre-crisis mode and you can kind of identify, as a professional, like these people need a lot of help or things are going to explode, as much as you want to like give them that, like, go to the weekend retreat and go take a week off, most people, me included, have egos that say, I can handle this and we're never going to get to that crisis and I got this. And so it's very, very challenging to get people to go into that ultra deep work uh, prior to a crisis. It's just almost impossible. Same thing. You're smoking, you're drinking, you're going to have a heart attack, and you're like, bah, I'm fine. I'm resilient. I have good stock in my blood. And then all of a sudden, you're in the fucking hospital and you have a heart attack, and you're like, oh, oops. And only until you get out of that hospital is when you can really start doing the true work. And so that applies to spiritual, emotional, mental health type stuff, obviously financial stuff. So post crisis is where you have the best opportunity for transformation, in my opinion, and my experience, not just opinion. When people are coming straight out of a post-crisis, they are humble, they're vulnerable, they recognize like, whoa. And sometimes you have to have a couple crises, unfortunately, because again, the ego is just like, well, that was just a one-time thing. Well, maybe not. Uh, and so once you're in this post-crisis mode, the doors of possibility are more open for transformation and uh, change in your behavior, change in the way you think, and change in the way, obviously, that your whole operating system can get oriented around your future. So right now I am in a unexpected post-crisis mode, and I am a lot more aligned to, what where have I had blind spots, and because I don't want that to happen again, because that really hurt. And so people make changes after things hurt. When you get enough pain, you might be like, oh, right, I gotta do something different. So this experience, with the parents and the parental forgiveness is something that I just want you who are listening, whoever listens, to understand, like, your parents, again, they're just like people like you. They are not heroes. And just because they had a biological function, you know, doesn't mean that they're all of a sudden turned into these like amazing communicators and these amazing caretakers. And so when you can start to understand the the humanity of your mother and father, you can start to forgive yourself. And when you can start to forgive yourself, um, you can get out of a shame spiral of, Angel says hi, of making mistakes. And you can be less afraid maybe to do steps forward that involve uh, risk and fear of messing up. Because you're gonna, like, if you're a human, you're gonna mess up, and you will mess up and make mistakes until the day you die. Um, so anyway, so I want to show the screen here. Let's go. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. So, obviously you guys can see the uh, beginning because you're reading the beginning of that blog. But this is, excuse me, the journey to forgiving our parents, personal healing, blah, blah, blah. And again, it's never about excusing harmful behavior, but it's about, not having resentment and clearing the space forward. All of this is written again by perplexity. And I think it's so interesting that we have, there we go. We have that. But you think about the psychology of parent and child wounds, you have early childhood experiences, you know, and so when we have rejection or hurt from our parents, when they judge us, when they yell at us, when they belittle us, it's very difficult for us to have that same uh, ability to forgive and the compassion for others if our parents are like shaming us all the time and saying, that you're worthless, your friends are worthless, what you do is worthless, etc. And so, to me, it's ultra important to just let that shit go, And so obviously we have lots of benefits. We can have healthier boundaries, more emotional maturity, better relationship skills. Uh, you know, at some point, you're just going to keep carrying this forward generation after generation after generation. If you do not put a line in the sand and say, it stops here, it stops with me. Um, Again, like, you're not excusing behavior that was hurtful, but what you are is acknowledging that, yep, you were wounded too. That's probably why you did it. And I love you and forgive you. And for me, it's just like, how do we get inside of the hearts of our parents? And so this is it. It's like taking time, learn about your parents' own experiences and their challenges, understanding the context of their behavior. And again, you can have compassion without excusing the actions. This is where a lot of people come in, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's parental, issues, or people didn't, pay enough attention to you, that yelled at you, etc. It's really, really getting to the heart of things, which is the heart, which is love. It's like, is that person truly an evil person? Did they want to hurt you? If the answer is no, and you have a reason for being in a relationship with them, then lean in. How can you learn to be a more loving higher consciousness person, Christ consciousness talks about forgiveness. And, that's what Jesus was about. It's about forgiving and, leave the judgment to God. You're not God. So don't judge other people. Just understand that you're all the same, walking each other home on this crazy human journey. And it's like, it's a university for your soul. And you're here to learn love. That's it. You're here to learn love, self-love, love of other, love of planet. Um, but so again, this is just, focusing on the positive and challenging aspects of our parents. What were their good things? What were their limitations? Did they have financial limitations? Did they have a physical limitation? Did they have, literally something wrong with them chemically? And then really, like, what are their positive things? What was good about them? It's easy to sit and look at the peaks of the negativity and identify those people that way. But the truth is, that's not who they are. Those are some actions. And so, um, were they good people? Were, 90% of the time, were they out there trying to make the best of life and do what they could, in life? So I think that's really, really important. I don't want to yawn here, but the journey of forgiveness requires changes in thinking, feeling, and acting. And so it does take time, and you have to process grief and let go of the resentment and develop compassion. That's it, and acknowledge that it hurt you. It doesn't mean like you're not allowed to feel angry or hurt. Like you can acknowledge, like I'm doing a thing with Good Inside. It's an app with Dr. Becky Kennedy, and uh, two or more things can be true at the same time. And so a lot of people forget and they think like, oh, it's black or white, like he's bad or he's good, or she's bad or she's good. It's like, no, she's good and she had some behavior that wasn't good. Huh, that's interesting. So for those of us, who are more mature than teenagers and young people who get stuck in black and white thinking, um, all of those things can be true. And so that's kind of like a self-forgiveness and a self-awareness and a self-acceptance thing to recognize. And you can be a good person and you can do some shitty things. And it doesn't take away from the goodness that lives within you. It just means you've got some work to do and some skill building, and you got to get back in the ring and keep doing it and practicing. Um, so anyways, DBT, there's other, therapies that you can work with that, work with mindfulness, skill building, emotional regulation, etc., how to have relational skills. And so these are things that we should all learn. Marshall Rosenberg with nonviolent communication. It's very important to start getting not just a giant box of tools that are sitting out in your garage, but like things that you bring with you into the dojo, into the practice zone, but then into the ring when you're with people, whether they're business people, whether they're lovers, whether they're family, friends, etc. So you're only going to get good at it if you actually do it. You're not going to get good at watching other people do it or reading a book about it or looking at an app. And so that's where the scary part is, And so when you can have some intentionality with the people that you love and work on things, you're going to make mistakes. You might feel like you're on eggshells, and I know I do. And I'm sometimes scared to do things because I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to mess it up because we got here to this good part. So if I do something, it's going to break it. It's like, is it really that solid if your one mistake is going to break it? No. So that tells you that you need more work. Easier said than done, of course. So looking at what Perplexity gave us, and this was, I think, with Claude 3.5, we're obviously working on creating new patterns. We want to break the old cycles. We want to have acceptance. And that's the other part. Oh, fuck. Acceptance is so hard. So hard. It's so hard because we want to control things and we want to change things, and other than, acceptance is an act of faith. It's an act of trusting God that this is the way it's supposed to be for now, and finding peace within that, and it's a tough one, but it's, I think, the most important thing we can do as humans. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so acceptance is a really, really big deal. Uh, so, anyways, this is really cool. And I thought it was great. Obviously, we've got some references so you guys can see this, but we'll go back here. Da, 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 turn you off. Um, I know this was kind of a big, long Sunday morning sermon, and I hope it serves you. And whether you're a parent or not, whether you're a parent that you are in training to become a parent and have children, or you've got young children, uh, forgiveness is a big, big, big deal, you know, and learning how to be a masterful forgiver is one of, I think, life's greatest gifts, and this 11x love lab that I'm working on, the lab stands for lessons and blessings, and there's a lesson in everything and there's a blessing in everything, right? And if we can accept that that is true, every little thing that has occurred in our lives has a lesson and a blessing in it. And if we choose to dive deep and sit with those things and get curious, we're going to find it, you know, um, and it helps us become more empowered and not in a victim mindset and not in a, "Why does this happen to me?" Dialogue that goes on sometimes for those of us who get hurt. And again, we are not bypassing feeling the feeling. It hurts to get hurt. It sucks. It sucks to get rejected. It sucks not to get chosen. You know, um, it sucks when things aren't working out to your vision. And the reality is, the more that we can get strong with knowing that that's just the way it goes. I don't care who you are. You could have $1 billion. You can be beautiful. You can have, you can be 6 foot tall guy. You can be strong. You can live in the right country. Like, no matter who you are and where you are, things are not going to go your way at some point. That's the way it is. Can't blame our parents. We can't blame anything. It's like up to us to change now and to be here now and to be a fucking badass love hacker, love warrior, love goddess, love God, and just love her like a super lover. So, my wish for you, if you've gotten this far, congratulations for listening to my voice for 42 minutes and 15 seconds. um, my wish for you is to be gentle with yourself and strong with your actions. And don't give up. Never give up. And if you need to make a list of all the things that your parents did that were bad, think about, I would encourage you to do this, okay? And this is something that's helped me a lot with not just my parents, but with people. Uh, again, we're not excusing bad behavior, but make a list of all the bad things that they did. They didn't, give me a lollipop at the grocery store. They yelled at me. They locked me in my room. They, didn't pick me up at practice on time, blah, blah, blah. They kicked me out, any of it. How many minutes of your life was that experience? Truly, like any of these experiences, it was 20 minutes, it was an hour, it was 5 days, it was a week, it was a year, it was 30 seconds, do that. And then on the other column, on the right side, make a list of all the things they did for you. Probably kind of boring. They kept a roof over your head. You got a car. You got, uh, uh, the electricity stayed on. They put food in the lunchbox for you. They didn't leave. Every single thing that they did. Oh, they gave you, string cheese in your lunch. They showed up at parent teacher conferences. Da, 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 da. How many minutes did that happen? I don't care who you are, unless you truly lived in the most uh, violent situation where somebody was constantly beating you up. Like, this right column is always going to be larger. It is, and the same thing. Like, so when you look at your family, your mother, your father, a lover, somebody, it's almost always going to be larger over here on the good side. And so what I also want you to do second is do that for yourself. And for those of you who struggle with self-forgiveness, I, have struggled with it, and that's where shame comes in and guilt. Um, do that list. Truly do the list and use math as your friend and just be like, here's all the things that I did that I'm not proud of. I yelled at my kid. I drank alcohol. I did this. I, didn't, meet my expectations of being, this person I want to be. Da, da, da. Do that. How many minutes of your life have you done that? And then how many minutes of your life have you stayed above ground? How many minutes of your life have you stayed, you know, out of jail, out of the morgue, out of the hospital, all of it, like it's hard being a human. So how many minutes compared to these things are there? Like you're also going to see this giant list. And so give yourself some grace, give yourself some credit, and give your parents the same grace and credit. Like for the most part, everybody's pretty damn good inside. And for the most part, we're all just chugging along, doing the best we can with what we've got. And so um, that's it. And this is one of the many steps of self love and self acceptance and acceptance of others and acceptance of the world around us. So I hope this helped. I know it was long, and it's been a tough one. And I don't know if you guys have been on a tough path lately, but if you have, you're not alone. And if you have, reach out, you know, subscribe to, where the hell is it? Subscribe. I don't know. Yeah, here you go. Get in the Love Hacker newsletter. Subscribe. I'll send you guys stuff once in a while. I'm going to be opening up the 11x Love Lab soon. I'm going to be doing the 11x Love Method course. I'm not going to give you the link yet because I don't want you all to sign up to something. It's going to be a waiting list. And I'm going to be doing a Bitcoin for Families virtual summit on December 7th. And I'm also going to be in Austin, I think the following weekend. Yeah, we're going to be doing a whole thing. But just go to the website, djvaleriebelove.com/subscribe, and you'll get all the info there. But other than that, just like, the subheading of this episode was like how to forgive with integrity. And, integrity to me means being true to yourself. It means not letting somebody off the hook, not letting the behavior off the hook, and, wanting that person to recognize that they, had a behavior that hurt you, but realizing like they're just a person like you and they're just a human. And so even if they repeat the behavior several times, if they're trying, they're truly trying, you know, give some grace because you're going to repeat lots of behaviors. I promise you. You're going to be hitting the porn. You're going to be eating the donuts at 2 a.m. You're going to be maybe smoking some weed or drinking or doing whatever you do. Like you're going to keep falling back into being a human. So just remember to have some grace for other people. And definitely your parents, they're just people. So I wish you a wonderful Thanksgiving here if you're in the States. And yeah, that's it. I really like being in my pajamas doing these episodes. They're fun. All right, everybody. Until next time, I've been up super early, so I might go take a nap. And until next time, I'm wishing you peace, love, and warm aloha. Always. God bless you. Thank you, God. Thank you for this moment. All right. Aloha.